in the words of my mouth, in the meditations of our hearts and the actions of our lives. May your word be proclaimed. Amen. I grew up with a fairly consistent message in my home. My parents were pretty encouraging of all three of us, even though the three of us would speak of it in completely different ways. I remember when my dad died, my sisters and I sat up till 7 in the morning of the day after he died, and we talked and how we realized we grew up in completely different homes. The consistent message to me was, Blair, do you not know that you are the best? You must know that you are the best, and there's nothing you cannot do. It's pretty hard to live up to being the best, and that was the message. It was this incredible gift of affirmation and deep joy. There's nothing you can't do. And I believed that. I remember when Jordan, my first son, was born, 2 weeks late by cesarean section. He was 10 pounds, 3 ounces. It was by cesarean. So while they stitched Sheila up, I went with the nurse to the nursery or wherever we were going, and she was going to bathe him. And so I held him while she got the water at the right temperature, and then she took him from me, and while she was bathing him and washing his face and hands and all of that stuff, she said to me, "What will his name be?" And I said, I think it's going to be Jordan. And she said, "He will always be Jordan to me." And then I remember going back to the hospital room with the baby, and Sheila began to nurse. And I remember watching her nurse. And then my dad's words came to me, "There's nothing you can't do," and I thought, there's at least 2 I can't do. I will never carry a baby to full term in my body. And I will never be able to nurture a baby at my breast and feed a baby at my breast. I know there are people amongst us who've had varying experiences of that, moms who've had varying experiences of that. But there's something I will never be able to do, and so all I can do is watch. I can only watch. Shauna, amazing. What does a man, have to say? What do I have to say about the experience of 2 women having a conversation about what it is to be pregnant? More notably, what do I, white, North American, economically privileged man, have anything to say about women's experience, and certainly women's experience in the first century? All I can do is watch. I can only watch. Mary comes to her cousin. Who knows why? I think you speculated why that might be. I speculated. Mary's pregnant by someone else's baby out of wedlock at a time when women were chattel property. I can imagine, and she hears of her cousin's Elizabeth's pregnancy, and I went to the same places. Why wouldn't she go to someone she could talk to? That would make sense to me. So I watch Mary go to Elizabeth, and in the greeting, And in the greeting, this child leaps. As a white, privileged North American male, it's probably useful that I close my mouth and just watch and pay attention. These two women are sharing a profoundly intimate, frightening birth experience. Elizabeth, old as she is, Mary, unmarried. I cannot possibly know anything about this. So I watch. I see two things. The holy within is recognized. Mary arrives carrying with her the light that darkness will never extinguish, and the infant in Elizabeth's womb recognizes it and leaps for joy. I do know that this can be men's experience. When you put your hand on a pregnant woman's belly who's at full term and the baby's going crazy, that's kind of what happened. That's what I'm hunching at. I watch how the holy within is recognized, and I ask, what does it take for me, privileged white North American male, to recognize the holy within every human being? Oh, that takes practice. And then the second thing I see in the song that the gospel writer Luke has Mary singing is actually Hannah's song from the Old Testament. Hannah was the mother of the prophet Samuel, who anointed King David as the boy. So Hannah was also old and barren. And in gratitude for Samuel's birth, she gives Samuel to Eli to be raised in the priest's house. She sings the same song. And so Luke remembers his Bible lessons, and he plants in Mary's mouth Hannah's song. And in that song, I see the images consistent with the Jewish idea of the year of Jubilee. Consistent with Luke's Gospel's social justice agenda. And I see the economic and political systems that oppress and create injustice topple, become overturned. He has shown strength with his arm. He has scattered the proud in the thoughts of their hearts. He has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away. He has helped his servant Israel in remembrance of his mercy, according to the promise he made to his ancestors, Abraham. You see, like last week, every valley shall be lifted up, every mountain made low. The economic injustices and political injustices are overturned in a song, in an intimate encounter between these two women. Women who are oppressed by very similar systems. How I wish Janessa Greening was here this morning. I bet you do too. Janessa is the new executive director at First United Church Mission in the downtown east side. Janessa is 9 months pregnant. She was hired by First United in about the 5th month of her pregnancy. Lo, in those days, in her 5th month, she was called, right? We could spin out a kind of gospel story, couldn't we? Her baby is due on Christmas Day. How curious is that? while I was sitting in my Christology class on Thursday, I got a text from her. Sorry to do this to you, Blair, but the baby has dropped. She said, I can't stand. I said, we could get you a chair. She said, well, I might have babe in hand or delivered while I'm preaching. I don't think that's going to work. In my role as presbytery chair 3 weeks ago, I visited Janessa, talking about her ministry, her role, her new role, and the recent history of trouble at First United. What does mission accomplished look like in the downtown east side? That was my question. Do you hear the same North American white economically privileged male bias in that question? What does mission accomplished look like in the downtown east side? With that is an underlying arrogant statement. All you people have to do is work just a little harder, and you'll pull yourselves out of this. Janessa was profoundly gracious. She was extremely kind as she gently disrupted my safe, secure, and privileged little world. First, she said, the 8-block radius that is the downtown east side is a microcosm of every system failure in our culture today. People who have fallen through the cracks of the child protection system, the justice system, the public education system, the residential school system, the urban planning system, the capitalist consumerist free market system, the public health system, the mental health system, the democratic system. People who've fallen through all those cracks all live in the 8-block radius that is the downtown east side. Then, with lovely hospitality for my arrogant privilege, she spoke to my mission accomplished question in the short term, medium term, and the long term. Short term, which is what she sees mostly, is having a client have a shower and a meal. That's a great achievement for someone who calls First United home. Medium term, the coordination of services. On the corner of Gore and Hastings will be 4 services. One, the Wall family has bought all of those little shops directly west of First United, and that's going to become a combination of market and social housing by city planning. Across the street is the downtown east side office, will be the downtown east side office of BC Housing. Across from there will be the main offices, the central services, and a new building of Coastal Health. And then across the street from that will be a new mission building at First United Church. Not yet. We're redeveloping the organization before we build the building, is what she said to me. That's the medium term. And where groups like the Union Gospel Mission, where they actually do work at transition, can work together to actually look at transition. That's medium term. I asked her about social enterprise, wondering about, could social enterprise operated by some of the residents of the downtown east side, could they kind of work towards that transition? And she cites statistics. Social enterprise in this environment usually only works with women, doesn't work with men. And typically it doesn't last that long because they often revert to the sex trade industry. Long term, first she quotes Jesus. We will always have the poor among us. And then she quotes him again, talking about what we do for those who are the poorest among us. And she quotes just as you did it for these, the least of my brothers and sisters, you also did it to me. And I recognize that the larger mission accomplished lives in Hannah and Mary's song. Economic tables are overturned. She's wonderfully careful not to admonish me for my privilege because she acknowledges hers at the same time. And she doesn't lambaste the church. This is a place where those who feel called to serve sacrificially come and do that. And Kathy, you know something about that? I discover how easily she recognizes the holy in every human encounter, whether it's a man storing his belongings in the storage program that First has, or in an arrogant white do-gooder preacher asking really unfortunate questions. This is one of the most significant questions I take with me into sabbatical. It's a question of call. It's a question of what I do with my privilege. How do I undertake my ministry as this white, privileged, North American male in one of the world's most affluent cities? From the perspective of recognizing the holy in all human life being interrupted, as Mary and Elizabeth were interrupted, by the world exactly the way it is. How do I see it exactly the way it is, in all of its beauty and all of its horror? How do I make room for the holy within myself and within those who are the least like me? Christ lives in both. The light shines in both, right where we are. I take this question into the 4 months that I'll be away in a developing third world country. I think watching is a good thing. What do you think? Watching, wide-eyed in wonder at the intimate experience of people working out their lives, step by step, in their own humanity, made in the image and likeness of the one who created them. I think that might be a good way to enter the question. Simply watching. I hope that's true for me. I hope it's true for you. May God bless us all as we embark on this Sabbath time. Amen. Let's pray together. Sometimes closing our mouths and watching the world exactly the way it is your gift to us, O Holy One. The world in all its beauty and all its horror is the world in which you come. May we make room as we say thank you. We are not alone. How good is that?